Discover the latest health tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories. This is the Health Channel Podcast. Your journey to better health starts now.
Pets, especially the bigger and the fluffier ones like Maine Coons and Burmese Mountain Dogs, are really good at hiding pain and or health issues like metabolic issues and being overweight. Today, we're going to tell you what you need to keep an eye out for on larger pets, as well as answer your other pet-related questions on this episode of Ask the Doc, No Appointment Needed. Welcome to Ask the Doc, the show where we encourage our viewers to send in their health questions. I'm Dr. Joy Carter, a licensed doctor of veterinary medicine, and today we're going to be focusing on health issues that affect larger breed pets. All right, let's get started, guys. Our first question comes to us from Percy, who reached out through our website, allhealthtv.com. Hi, Dr. Carter. I brought my Great Dane Hugo back with me from Australia. He seems to be in perfect health, but is that true that giant breeds need more frequent visits to the vet than smaller ones? All right, Percy. Wow, that was a long trip for you and for your dog. So as far as more frequent visits, yes and no. I do believe that pets need to be examined by their veterinarian, and this is including cats too, because cats are the worst ones that we don't see until they get really sick at least once a year, okay? Now, in particular, large breed dogs do not tend to have a lifespan as long as some of these smaller breed dogs. So for them, they may need to start going for more frequent visits, like say twice a year, when they are much earlier age than say your small breed dogs, okay? Obviously, if your pet has any type of underlying health condition, your veterinarian is going to recommend how often they should come in for checkups, which might include blood work or just a physical exam, all right? So I wouldn't say it's more frequently. I would just say that they do start to age sooner, okay, Percy? And so as they start to get older, yes, they do probably need to be seen more than once a year. Because remember, guys, on average, it varies a little bit. For every 1 year that us as humans age, it is around 7 years for your pets, okay? And that is a very long time for your pet to go without seeing a doctor, for you without seeing a doctor, okay? All right, great question, though, to kickstart this show, Percy. All right, our next question is from Ruthie, who reached out through Facebook. Hi, Dr. C. I was never a big fan of rabbits until I recently met my Flemish giant, Joanna. Living in a hot and humid environment like we do, how can we tell if she is dehydrated? Hi, Ruthie. Great question and good job on being proactive. All right. So definitely rabbits, just like any other species of animals, they can become dehydrated. Now, typically, most of our rabbits, as far as that are going to be pets, we're going to keep them inside, all right? So thankfully, we have a wonderful invention called the AC. And so most of our indoor pets, rabbits included, that are inside, you really don't have to worry about dehydration from it being too hot, because hopefully the AC is working. Now, if for some reason you do have a rabbit that's kind of in an outdoor space, like on a patio or a balcony, definitely during the hot summer months, you do want to have something on that pet to kind of cool them off, like a fan or whatnot. Things that you can look for as far as signs of dehydration is kind of universal across like different species too. But obviously one big thing would be how their gums feel or their mucous membranes. Do they feel dry? Do they feel sticky, or what we kind of call tacky? That can be an indication of dehydration. Do you notice that their eyes seem kind of sunken? Okay, that can be an even more serious indication of dehydration. And another thing you can do is kind of pinch their skin up If they are hydrated, that skin should kind of bounce back, okay? If they're dehydrated, it will kind of go back to normal, but it will take a little bit longer for the skin to kind of bounce back, all right? So, those are things you can look out for. If you suspect that your pet is dehydrated, okay, definitely get them to a vet because dehydration, just like in humans, can be very serious and can sometimes be life-threatening if it's not treated properly, all right? Hopefully, Joanna is living her best life in the AC, okay? But if for some reason, Ruthie, if you're concerned that she might have some issues with dehydration, just get her checked out by your veterinarian, okay? All right, we got another Facebook question, and this is from one of our loyal viewers. This is from Dory, who reached out through our Facebook page. Dr. Carter, I have a 4-year-old Maine Coon, Maisie. I thought she'd be full grown by now, but she keeps getting bigger. How can I tell if she's still growing or just getting fatter? All right, Dory, Maine Coons, they are big cats. They're fluffy. Sometimes it's hard to tell because they're such a fluff ball if they're getting fat or what's going on. But I will say this, okay? Typically at 4 years old, your cat is done growing. So if you notice that your cat seems to be getting bigger or putting on weight, it definitely could be that she is getting fatter, unfortunately, okay? If you see them kind of growing this way versus this way, that can be that they're growing, okay? This way usually means they're getting fatter, okay? And other things that you can kind of do at home to see if they're maybe getting a little bit chunkier besides weighing them, which now everybody has those little robots that weigh their cats all the time. So, or you can pick your cat up, stand on the scale, then get on the scale without the cat and subtract it and figure it out. But if you're not able to do that at home, one thing you can do is just feel them, okay? Can you feel the ribs? All right. Now, the ribs don't need to be that prominent, but you should be able to kind of feel the ribs and you should be able to kind of feel a little bit of a waist. If you don't really feel their ribs, that's not a good sign. That means that they're probably a little bit chunky. Okay. Well, listen, I love me some chunky, cute, fluffy cats. It is not the best for their health, okay? There's a lot of problems they can have. So definitely, if you're concerned about your pet being overweight, speak with your veterinarian, all right? There are a lot of new diets, okay, that can help with weight control and with weight loss. And it's definitely something that unfortunately can cause problems such as issues with their joint, metabolic disorders, excessive strain on the other organs, things like that. So just like in humans, being overweight is not good. Same thing with your pets, all right? All right, our next question comes to us from Kaden, who just visited us on Insta. Hi, Dr. Carter. My wife grew up with a big old St. Bernard, so of course it made complete sense that when we moved into a studio apartment together, we got a really cute St. Bernard puppy, cleverly named Bernie. I've since learned that occasionally they can develop a serious condition known as bloat. What can you tell me about it? All right. Take a deep breath, Kaden. It's going to be okay. I'm going to tell you about this. But first, let me go over some health risks that we can see in bigger pets. All right. So I kind of talked about this the last question. Joint mobility issues. Same thing in humans. The heavier you are, the more strain you're putting on your joints. All right. Same thing with the heart and the lungs and even other internal organs. The bigger you are, the more the strain. Definitely metabolic disorders, okay? Diabetes is going to be the number one that we tend to see on there as far as in dogs that are overweight. And obviously lower life expectancy. Same thing it is in humans. Obviously, when you're overweight, it can cause you to have more health problems, and that can lower your life expectancy, unfortunately. And then obviously, the bigger the pet is, the more prone sometimes they are to becoming obese, all right? So some of our larger breed pets, we've got to watch out a little bit more carefully. All right, let's get back to your question, Kaden. Okay, yes, there is a very serious disorder or disease that we can see in the larger breed dogs, in particular, the ones also that are deep chested. It is certainly called bloat, or also known as gastric dilatation and volvulus. And if this occurs, this is 100% a medical emergency, and you need to take your vet to an emergency hospital or to your veterinary as soon as possible, okay? Typically, this happens because they swallowed a lot of air or they ate their food very fast. And so the stomach will basically become very distended and then it actually twists on itself. And when that happens, there is a very large vessel called the caudal vena cava. For anybody who remembers this in biology or anybody who's into medicine, that it can cut off the blood supply to that vessel. Okay. And that can cause basically your patient to go into shock. And then also, too, because the stomach is twisted, nothing can basically come up from the stomach. So that a lot of times they will try and retch or try and vomit, and they can't really get anything up. And then nothing can go out of the stomach. So then the stomach becomes very, very distended with gas and gets bigger and bigger. And in some very severe cases, the stomach can rupture. Unfortunately, in those cases, that happens most of the time. It is deadly. Now, it is treatable. It is treatable with emergency surgery. All right. And I'm just going to say this easily. Treatment and emergency surgery for a dog with a bloat or a GDV, I would say on average is about probably $5,000 to $6,000. Okay, depending on where you go. Sometimes even up to $10,000. This is why, guys, I say this almost every single episode. Health insurance or pet insurance for your pets is so very important. Okay. It helps for emergencies like this that you do not expect. All right. So I highly recommend it. Okay. Because no veterinarian wants to put down a pet for something like this, which is a very, serious and life-threatening condition that can be treated. And nobody wants to put them down because an owner is not able to afford this. Okay. All right. So, Caden, listen, be very careful with your St. Bernard. Okay. Doesn't mean that he's going to get bloat. But actually, let me talk about this real quick. There is something you can do to prevent it. There is a surgery that can be done. I do recommend getting it done whenever they are spayed or neutered, and it's called a gastropexy, and is actually where we suture the stomach to the inside of the abdominal wall so it can't flip. And that is definitely one thing that you can do. It's not very expensive, and whenever you get your pet spayed or neutered, your veterinarian can do that. So definitely, Caden, do that, okay? Another thing is still get health insurance even if you get a gastropexy done, because there's a lot of other problems that unfortunately St. Bernards can have, okay? But hopefully this never happens, to your baby, all right? All right, this next question comes to us from Harlow, who reached out through YouTube. Hey, doc, I have a sweet British short haired named Alfie, who's a little lazy for a 4-year-old cat. Maybe this is a silly question, but can indoor cats get serious health problems like outdoor cats sometimes do? Hi, Harlow. There's nothing really silly about this question. The answer is yes. Now, I will say that outdoor cats do tend to be a little bit more at risk for kind of freak accidents, trauma, things like that. What I mean is hit by car, falling out of a tree, being attacked by a dog or another animal. Okay. We don't really tend to see those in our indoor cats, but all of the other diseases that cats can get, diabetes, hyperthyroidism, kidney disease, things like that. Indoor cats are just as much predisposed as outdoor cats are. All right. And this is one reason why it is so important, guys, to take your cat in yearly for a checkup. Okay. I know that your cat is acting completely fine. You're like, listen, I don't need to do my vaccines. My cat doesn't go outside. My cat's eating and drinking. But unfortunately, cats are very good at hiding disease. All right. And a lot of times they don't show signs or symptoms or act sick until it is very serious. I hear it so many times a week. Oh, doc, I'm sorry. I would have brought my cat in sooner, but my cat just started doing this a few days ago. And next thing you know, I've diagnosed their cat with pretty severe, kidney disease, something that more than likely had been going on, but the cat was able to manage. The reason it's important to bring them in for checkup is we can do blood work. There's things we can detect sometimes on physical exam. And obviously, if we can detect these diseases sooner, then hopefully we can start treatments that hopefully can prolong their lifespan and slow down the progression of whatever the disease is. All right. All right. So your cat being a little bit lazy, I'm not too worried about that, Harlow, but I definitely do recommend bringing her in every year and getting her checked out by her veterinarian. Okay. All right. We got another question from our website, allhealthtv.com. You should really go check it out when you get a chance because it is a chock full of great information. All right. And this question is going to come from Hugo, who asked, Hi, Dr. Joy. We have a African sulcata tortoise named Speedy, nicknamed Speedy. He seems to be in pretty good shape, but full transparency, I have no idea what to look out for, even if he wasn't. Any suggestions? All right, Hugo, those type of tortoises, from what I heard, can get pretty darn big. And I guess I would say pretty darn cute too. Okay. All right. Let's get back to your question, Hugo. Okay. All right. So typically when it comes to reptiles, as far as tortoises, turtles, your geckos, bearded dragons, typically when they show signs of disease, it unfortunately usually means that it is something that has been going on for a very long time period. Okay. And typically it has to do with issues with what we call husbandry. So that has to do with what you're feeding them, the environment that they're housed in, and even the temperature and things like that. Okay. When it comes, to tortoises and turtles, definitely they can suffer from some metabolic bone diseases, and that can be caused by poor diet, all right, or lack of certain nutrients in the diet. And then also, too, it can be caused by not having proper UV lighting, okay? Remember, a lot of these reptiles need to be in certain temperature environments, and they need to have certain, UV lighting that can affect them, okay? Definitely another thing you can see in tortoises are respiratory infections. Typically, it tends to be bacterial causes, but I think there are some viral causes that can also cause that. Obviously, if you notice any issues with your tortoise breathing, such as open mouth breathing, or any discharge coming from the eyes and the nostrils areas, things like that, definitely go get them checked out. Another big thing is trauma. Okay. Obviously, I think with this type of tortoise, he's pretty big, but some of the smaller turtles I have seen come in because they have been basically, attacked by a dog and bitten. And remember, guys, their shell, that's their skeleton. Okay. It's like us kind of having our skeleton on the outside. So unfortunately, if they have severe damage to their shell, sometimes it can be life-threatening, and sometimes it can be fixed. All right. I don't know the most about tortoises, but I do know a little bit. Hopefully that helps kind of answer some questions for you, Hugo. There is a lot of good, useful information out there on the internet. And I definitely would recommend finding you a veterinarian that does specialize in the exotics, because the last thing you want to do is when you need to bring him in for a health checkup is to be finding a veterinarian, because there's really not a whole lot of those exotic veterinarians around. Okay. All right, so let's go to our next question, guys. And this one is from Paisley, who reached out to us on Facebook. Hi, Doc. Our Labrador Retriever is always hungry. So hungry, in fact, that everyone in the family feeds him whenever he does something cute, which is always. How can we prevent weight gain without underfeeding him? All right, Paisley. Yes, those golden retrievers, they're so stinking cute. So, couple of things you can do, obviously, is try and tell people not to feed him, but that may or may not work. Another thing is obviously we do have weight loss food, and we do have treats that are for weight loss, or help with weight control. So maybe you could see about getting your friends and families who are giving him food to do that instead of the human food. And definitely, if you do feel like he is getting quite a bit of snacks during the day, then you may want to cut down on the amount of food that you're actually feeding him throughout the day. I get this question a lot. Hey, doc, how often should I feed my pets? Obviously, at least once a day. That's what I feed my dog. But if you want to feed your pet twice a day, that's fine. If you want to feed him three times a day, that's fine. The whole point is the same thing in humans, okay? It's calories in versus calories out. And your doctor can help you determine the correct amount of kilocalories, okay, that your pet should be ingesting throughout the day. And that's one thing you can do to try and help manage their weight, is to kind of monitor that. All right. So good luck with your friends trying to not give food to your cute golden retriever. but hopefully that works, okay? Because we don't want him overweight. All right, the next question in our queue, it comes from Malik on our Instagram page. Doc Joy, my Weimaraner Gunther eats incredibly fast. Is that dangerous? And if so, why? All right, Malik, that's a very important question. I kind of spoke about this, I think, with Hugo. All right. So, yes, definitely eating too fast is one thing that can possibly cause your dog to develop bloat or the gastric dilatation in volvulus. Okay. That is typically the number one cause of it. They eat so fast, they swallow a lot of air gets in that stomach, the stomach gets big, and next thing you know, the stomach twists on itself. All right. Now, there are some things you can do to try and prevent your pet from eating that fast. There are some new food bowls that have, well, maybe they're not new, but there's food bowls out there that kind of basically are like a little bit of a maze. And so it helps your pet slow down when they're eating. Something else you can too is kind of dividing the meals up a little bit. So if you normally say feed a cup of food to your dog, you can maybe give a quarter of a cup. Let them eat that. Give them a minute to kind of digest that, and then give them another quarter cup or something like that. There definitely are ways out there to try and slow down their eating. And I definitely would recommend that, especially in your breed. Weimaraners are another breed that are predisposed to developing bloat. Okay. All right. So good luck with that. All right. This next question is going to be from Herbie, who just reached out to us through our YouTube page. Hi, dog. My senior boxer, Jake, is slowing down. He's 7, which I don't think is that old, but I've been told that bigger dogs don't live as long as small dogs. So what do you think, Doc? Is it old age or is it something else? All right, Herbie, that is a legitimate question, okay? Definitely, you are correct. Unfortunately, larger breed dogs do not have a lifespan that is as long as the shorter, the smaller breed dogs, guys. Sorry about that. Okay. And definitely age 7 is kind of getting up there in age for a boxer. Now, their lifespan can vary, but I would say on average, it's going to be about 10 to 12 years. So you're kind of above that middle age point. All right. So definitely I would recommend at that point, Herbie, that you probably, get Jake checked out. Okay. Maybe he might be dealing with some issues with arthritis. There's a lot of new treatments out recently that can help dogs with arthritis. Maybe he could be starting to develop some issues with his thyroid. What we call hypothyroidism. His thyroid levels might be low. There's medications that can help treat that. There's a lot of different things we can do for our senior pets to make them more comfortable. All right. And, everybody likes to think that, oh, my pet is old. I can't do anything about this and that, or I can't put them under anesthesia. Age itself is not a disease. All right. But remember, just like as you age, your pets age too, and they can start to have more problems, can start to develop just because they are getting older. But the good thing is there's a lot of new advances in veterinary medicine to make our pets more comfortable and to even kind of help make them live a little bit longer. All right. Well, I think this is all the time we have for the show today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and go out there and have a great rest of your day. And I will see you guys next time when I'm back. Okay. All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Health Channel podcast. We hope this information has been useful. However, please remember that only your doctor can advise you about what is best for you. Do not start, modify, or suspend treatment based on anything you have heard on this podcast. Please join us again soon.